So here's a gentleman that clearly needs an Advil or an Aleve. He's got a terrible headache, and the reason why he's got that terrible headache is because he's working for an emerging growth organization, and there's a lot of challenges that are inherent with up and coming companies, and a lot of the challenges really come down to the document management strategies that are being employed. And oftentimes we see things like a lack of standardization. Things are not centralized. You have documents sitting in different places. It pretty much is the wild, wild west. And, what we're trying to introduce here really is the sheriff in town. And that's where these really nice document workflows really come into play. So, that is what we're going to be focusing on today. And, workflows are not just unique to eTMF Connect, but also to a lot of different systems.
I have to cut you off. I see you have your helper in back of you. You have to introduce her.
I do have my helper. Yeah, this is my my daughter, who I told her many times not to come on come on camera.
What are kids for? What are kids for?
Exactly.
That we
not listening. But as I was saying, if I can somehow get back on track here. The workflows are not just part of eTMF, although that's what we're going to be focusing on today. But in future sessions, we'll also be probably talking about how to leverage workflows and things like quality management, as well as your regulatory submission management. But today, we're really going to be focused squarely on eTMF. And, with that, let's get into the fun stuff, and I'll hand it off to you, Chris.
I'll just maybe set the scene very quickly until we jump into that specific use case. But obviously, we're looking here at our eTMF interface, or our homepage, where the vast majority of users start their day. A lot of really important information here with regards to, the trial that I'm looking at, the countries that I'm in with this trial, the different sites within these countries, and then obviously the contacts as well. As I was clicking through, you see my list of completed or final documents, my incomplete documents that we're updating based on that country. Some of the other placeholders, or documents in the system. Obviously, we have documents that are undergoing formal revision cycles, documents that are expected of us at any given time. So obviously, these are placeholders within the system, and then also our missing documents that if we ever surpass a specific milestone, documents will shift from this expected pile to the missing pile. So just wanted to take a few seconds to set the scene a little bit so we can understand what we're looking at. But as Avi was mentioning, we're really here to focus on a specific part of TMF management, and really an early part of TMF management, which would be creating documents within the system and not having to leverage an external system or external sort of processes to get those documents drafted, collaborated on, get that content where it needs to be, and then obviously get those documents approved. So if I click quickly, head over to the staging area within our eTMF Connect, a really cool area where we can collect documentation or receive documentation through an email. We can also leverage this area to create documents from templates. And a few cool features here. Obviously, we have sort of a template library or centralized library where you can bring in all your own templates. You can create your templates to really standardize the look and feel of the TMF documentation you're putting together. But by simply clicking this drop down here, I can see the templates that I've already populated in the system. And maybe for today's demonstration, we'll use this protocol template, a template for an observational study. By clicking that template, what's really nice as well is obviously we're going to want to index that document, right? We're going to want to index that protocol. The system automatically knows where that document needs to be indexed in the TMF reference model. So by creating this document, heading over here to view my details, to continue indexing this document, you're going to see the system pulls up the template that I was referencing, that what I would have preloaded in the system, already indexed as per TMF reference model. So my process zone, section, and document type have been uploaded. The system will also name the document, a document ID, based on the nomenclature that we help you set up. So a little bit of automation there, which is really nice. But there's always a free text field here that we can leverage as well. In this case of the optional metadata, I'm just going to go ahead and select myself as the document owner, and then I can head over and define the timeline of where this document goes. So there's going to be a few steps, and we'll take a look at a slide that allows us to get a global view of where documents go as we're drafting them. But in this case, just for the purposes of the demo and to get this workflow going, I'm going to go ahead and associate a few people to this specific peer review so that we can collaborate on this collaboration or collaborate on this document. So as I'm letting this document create itself and go index itself, I'm going to head over to this slide. And Aviv, I know we always get a lot of questions about this sort of document collaboration process and, you know, how extensive it really needs to be. Well, the nice thing about the system is we, in sort of the setup, we work on your file plan with you to determine, you know, based on the risk of documents, what needs to be applied to that document when it comes to the collaboration. So obviously not all documents are the same. They're not all equal. Some riskier than others. Some you may be producing and collaborating on with different people in different departments, whereas some may be, you know, a 1 or 2 person job, right? So we can cater this workflow to your organization. But to show you sort of the global view, obviously we just looked at that draft function. So we drafted a document in the system from a template. Now we're going to look at the peer review, right? So we associated in that timeline who was going to be part of that peer review, and myself and my colleagues can now work on the content of that document and get it to where it needs to be. From there, a few different review steps before we convert that document to a PDF. So obviously we can have different departments and different management or regulatory people be part of that process. The system will convert that Word document for you. So there's a native PDF conversion tool. So the system is keeping that document. It's never leaving the system itself. After that conversion, obviously just a regulatory publishing and approval step to make sure everything looks good, content is good, the PDF conversion was done, and then we can go ahead and approve that document. So all of this creation through the collaboration and creation of that content to the management review and PDF publication, all the way through to either a 21 CFR Part 11 compliant e-signature and electronic approval, all of that will live within the system and will make your inspectors or auditors extremely happy when they can view that entire life cycle of that document creation or that document review, that document update, whatever the situation may be. Everything is, as Aviv mentioned earlier, centralized within one system. You don't have various different disconnected systems, people working in different ways off different templates, contributing to the TMF. Everything is really being done within this workflow here. From there, obviously, once that content has been agreed upon and approved, then we will go through more of a formal indexing and post-approval final file, which we've looked at, I think, in a different demo, and we can obviously look at sort of that final step in a more tailored demo to your organization.
So Chris, just a few points to clarify there. So you're saying we can really configure that workflow depending on the type of document, and even within that workflow, we have the integrated e-signature piece, 21 CFR Part 11 signatures, never have to leave the system.
Absolutely, and I can actually show that. It's a good point. I wasn't planning on it, but I think it's important to really show that completed workflow, and you're absolutely right. So basically all the way through from the creation to the e-signature or the electronic approval, all managed by the system itself. So as we were going through those slides, you'll remember we created that protocol template, Aviv. So a few things that would happen from here. Obviously, the people that are going to take part are going to get a task based on sort of what they are taking part in this review. But I'm going to click in because there's a few different ways you can access this document. I'm actually going to click directly into this document here and open it up in Word. So this is going to open up that template. So now no one has worked on this. This is opening up in Word Online. I can open this up very easily in my Word desktop to then go and take part in sort of a collaboration and content creation workflow with my colleagues. I'm going to enable editing here and just point out a few things. So obviously, if we're used to working in Word, if we're used to collaborating and redlining and commenting, well, good news is all the same functionality. So if I head over to my review panel over here, I can show comments, accept, reject, redline, hide the ink, everything that we're used to when it comes to the creation and the collaboration of documents. I can easily work on this document as is my own, remove anything that's related to sort of templates, right? So now I know it's an observational study protocol. Add this language in. I would check my content, create my content, whatever it is when it comes to making sure that this document is where it needs to be. As you can see, it's always saving back to the system. So while I'm working in Word, I have autosave off. You can have autosave on. Obviously, it'll prompt me to save at the end, which we'll see. But the important thing is that while I'm working on a desktop version, quote unquote, it's still saving back to the cloud and saving back to our system, most importantly. So all of the changes are being tracked, not only in Word, but are also being tracked in the system as well when you're pulling audit trails. So I'm going to go ahead and X out of this document. I'm going to save my changes, obviously, just to show you how this is reflected back in the system itself. So if I head back over to this view, obviously this is that template we started from. If I click refresh here, you'll see that those changes that I made in Word will be reflected in this version over here. So some pretty cool stuff in terms of being able to work directly in Word, but it basically being reflected in the system itself. That way you're not having to ever leave the system and break that audit trail.
Another quick question for you, Chris. Can you have multiple people working within the document?
Absolutely. And you can, again, control that how you would in any standard Word collaboration. So you can lock documents out. If you want to be the only person that's working in it, you can collaborate while both individuals or multiple individuals are in the document. You can lock down paragraphs. You can see what other people are editing. So all that same functionality you're used to, Aviv, when you're using Word and collaborating, and making sure that you're not sort of both editing something at the same time, but you can still work on that document together in conjunction. So some pretty cool stuff there. I did want to show you as well what, as I alluded to earlier, what that would look like as a task if I were to be part of a review group. So I do have an older task here that I'd created, but it'll show us what it would look like if I sort of was the document owner and I now associated this to one of my colleagues. So you can see here my colleague Oliver, you probably all know, created this document all the way back in May, and put me as the document reviewer. And as you can see, I am way behind on my tasks. So Oliver has been messaging me incessantly. He's also, I also told him 3 months ago I was reviewing this. Now, obviously that wasn't the case. Aviv, don't tell anybody, it's just for a demo. But obviously you can see that we can collaborate on the review of this document here. Again, this could be myself, Aviv, and any number of colleagues that are taking part here. But most importantly, obviously we're checking that metadata. We're doing a QC check there. But here, more importantly, is we're heading to this document, right? And we're going to go and collaborate on the contents of this document. And until I confirm and close this, right, my review task remains open and we can continue as a team working on this until it's done. When I do confirm and close, in this case, I'm the only one taking part in this review. Oliver would get a notification that I've done my review, and it's now on him to check that review. And if everything is okay, run that review now down to the next step, which would be, again, based on this slide that we saw, could be a management review, could be a regulatory review, or that could be the final step of the document creator being part of that document review and sending it directly for approval, right? So again, different ways, as you mentioned, Aviv, that we can manage that. And similarly to as we saw earlier, I can easily open the document here, open it in Word as I did earlier to work on the contents. Here you can see I even have comments right on the document. So again, you can really dig into what's been going on in this document to then continue in that content creation. So some really cool stuff there. I did reference other sort of tasks that'll be part of this process. So just wanted to maybe look at those very quickly. So again, this would be the document review, and the document, once those reviews are done and the document owner is happy with the contents, would sort of kick that down the line for either management review or, in the previous example, obviously either electronic approval or an electronic signature. So electronic approval, very straightforward. We're going to see the same view of this task that we saw earlier, and we're going to see the same view of the task when we look at electronic signature, but obviously electronic signature having one more step. So I can easily preview my document, go see if there's any comments, check the metadata, check the timeline, see where that document's been, see who worked on that document, etc. And then I can go and either approve or reject this document. Maybe now is a good time to talk about sort of rejection, right? You can obviously set your reasons for rejection and track those reasons for rejection, and obviously get a better understanding of why documents are getting rejected on a whole. But as I said, I wanted to show you sort of what a signature looks like. Again, very similar process of you would have gone through sort of that document collaboration review, management review, and then it would have been down to myself here, as you can see, as this document approver. So I want to do that last metadata check out the document, again, open it up in Word as I did before if I want, but more importantly, go approve this document, and then I would go and sign and close this task. So essentially we're, as I said earlier, integrated to Adobe's 21 CFR Part 11 tool, easily create that document for signature as you've always done by dragging and dropping, or as the signatory here, go read my document. Again, do that QC check. As a good TMFer, I wouldn't skip the whole step by pressing start. I would go and read all the content, make sure everything is good. And then obviously I can go assign my document. And as per sort of 21 CFR Part 11 Annex 11 guidelines, re-authenticate myself, give my reason for signature, and my date and timestamp. So some really cool stuff, and really sort of managing that entire life cycle of the document creation directly in your system. And this can be done at the sponsor level, working with CROs and having CROs working in the system and creating their documentation. This could be a CRO that wants to add sort of a, added benefit to working with them and being able to show full and complete audit trails within the system, and even have sponsors work in there and vice versa, and creating that documentation, but making sure that it's controlled through the system. So again, various different use cases that we see our customers using this, but ultimately it's part of that sort of TMF utopia that we talk about all the time, and making sure that, everything is done in a living and breathing TMF.
And another quick question, Chris, I kind of alluded to, the sheriff in town. If we're working with external stakeholders, we have the ability to control their access.
Absolutely. That's a really good question, and a really good thing to bring up. So we can get very granular in the permissions that we're offering people. So like in the idea of a sponsor working with a CRO, or a CRO working with sites, and they want to restrict sort of who has access to what. Obviously, users can be restricted to studies, countries, sites, right down to process zones if need be. And some of those process zones can be read-only, can be read-write. So you can get very, very creative, and the system is very flexible in those permissions and roles that you're granting to people, because at the end of the day, you want to make sure only the right people have access to the information that they need to. But really good question, Aviv.
Makes sense.
Well, thanks so much, everyone, for joining us today. Aviv, always a pleasure. I feel like we've done many demos lately, and we have many more to go. I love
a lot more.
On that note, I was going to mention that, as always, please feel free to reach out to myself, to Aviv, to any one of my colleagues in the sales and go-to-market team, and we'd be happy to set up some time to chat and share some industry best practices and knowledge that we've acquired over the years. And we can always dig into the system a little bit more and try and paint the picture of what it would look like in your organization with your workflows. Aviv,
absolutely.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, sir. Much appreciated. Great presentation, and we'll see you guys next time.